Yo, what is up, travelers? Second Survives here, and today I'm bringing you a very special hardcore build guide. This is something that I really wanted to do and was excited about. This is my Ice Flask Explosive Trap Falconer, and I am currently level 95, playing hardcore solo account found. I just did a arena push with this current gear setup, and I got to wave 170, so that puts us at rank 22 overall and rank number 6 for rogues currently. So I feel like that's really strong showing, and this build certainly can go higher and higher on the top end damage to help push it even further and rank up even higher in arena if that's what you like to do for fun. Basically, this build is utilizing Frostbite. Right now we're doing 1,338 per tick, and that could easily go up to 1,500 if not 1,700 or even 2,000 depending on how much you farm for this build, what your gear setup is, and how much damage over time you end up getting on your various pieces of gear. But I wanted to jump into this build here and show you some footage. So we're going to show some boss footage and some mapping footage, and it's all going to be level 100, about 130 corruption level. And so we'll just jump right into that, and then we'll come back and talk about the gear and the passives and everything like that. Alright, travelers, so for this build on boss fights, you basically just throw down your traps, and the trap is going to choose like a different target than the main one you throw it at, in the sense that when the acid flask deploys from the explosive trap, the acid flask is going to target the an alternative target than what the explosive trap hit. So it's going to shoot to the left and the right and hit alternative targets. So your main target that you're throwing the trap at is going to die last, pretty much. So that's a little something to get used to, but for this boss fight it displays it pretty well because all three of them are dying very evenly, and that's because I'm kind of, you know, throwing them at different targets at different times. But for any boss fight with this build, you basically just want to throw traps, and you can stand stationary and just throw traps. You basically just want to move when there's a telegraph, or you want to move kind of just every so often to make sure that you are not, you know, standing still. Standing still in ARPGs is pretty much death, and you don't want to do that. So you just throw the traps and then move, and that is basically how the bossing is done. Again, telegraphs are death, and always choose to move out of a telegraph rather than to keep your damage ticking. Damage uptime is the secondary thing you want, and survivability is the primary thing you want. So for mapping, this is how it's going to look like, and you basically, same idea, you just throw traps and you move, and then the traps are going to just automatically target nearby enemies. And so you can kind of just brain dead, just kind of throw traps around. You don't even need to throw the trap at the target you want to hit, because once you throw an additional set of traps, the previous ones will start to trigger, and they will automatically target enemies nearby. So you don't even, as you can see, I'm not even throwing them at specific targets, I'm just throwing them around. And then pretty soon here, I'm going to open up the defense tab and just kind of show you what the defenses look like as you're mapping and as you're running around. So, you know, we have our Dust Shroud stacks pretty much above 20 at all times, but peaking around 50 stacks. And with that, that's going to give you, 50 stacks of it's going to give you max dodge, and then 100% glancing blow chance. So you're really, really tanky on this build. And then also, whenever we freeze an enemy because of the frostbite shackles, we are getting a little bit of ward too. Not that it's incredibly impactful, but it does help a little bit, especially with the Silver Shroud stacks. So here's the defense tab, 40% armor at all times because of the shuriken proccing off our shift. That's really, really strong to have. And then you can watch the dodge go up as I start to throw traps here. So we're sitting around 70 dodge pretty much all the time, but it does go upwards of 80 when we do have a high amount of stacks of Dust Shroud. And those again come from the explosive trap just exploding. So while you're mapping, you're very, very tanky. You're pretty much dodging everything. If you don't dodge, you're taking a glancing blow, which is a reduction of damage on the hit. And then on top of that, you have a flat amount of 40% armor. So you're taking that much more. I think around 70% reduced damage on every single hit, kind of roughly. So the health and the damage, the defense and the damage on this build is really, really impressive in my opinion. And like I said in the beginning of the video, you can scale this build really infinitely and kind of, you know, min-max the gear to get more armor, get more health. I think this build could easily get around 2.5k health fully min-maxed, and and then around 50% armor, fully min-maxed, and then the damage, like I said, around 1,500 per frostbite tick. So those are all really, really strong things to have for this build overall, and I hope you really enjoyed this mapping showcase. Overall, the playstyle is very fun, very quick, and very just aesthetically pleasing too, with all the fun, cool explosions going off all the time. So Alright guys, so this build, as you can tell, it is using some uniques. So this is going to be a little bit different build guide than what you're used to seeing from me, because I really tried to make sure that I wasn't using uniques in a lot of the builds. But with this build, I decided to do something a little bit different. I've been using Vial of Volatile Ice since level 1 on this character. I've only ever been using Acid Flask to level. So you can equip this really cool unique if you have it right from level 1. I think you get Acid Flask at level 4. So right at level 4, start using it, and you can use it all the way through to endgame. And it really wasn't no problem to use just Acid Flask leveling, and then you can transition into Explosive Trap. However, you really do need to have some specific things for this build, and it very much, if you're familiar with Ziggy D, I'll have a link to his Poison Flask video or his Acid Flask video for this build. It's basically just the poison version without using this unique offhand, and it's a very good build. But what the most important thing that you need to have for this build is this ring right here, this -5 throwing attack mana cost. This is a tier 7 drop only, and I farmed this in hardcore solo self-found via Circle of Fortune, and I used Exalted Ring prophecies in dungeons, specifically Temporal Sanctum, and dropped it. But it did take me quite a long time to farm this. I've been playing this build for maybe about 2 weeks, so it's definitely one of the longer builds I've ever played, to kind of really push it to its limits and see just how far we can push it with kind of just this initial gear setup I've been able to put together. But there's been many iterations of this character's gear, but this current iteration is really, really good for empowered end game, pushing corruption and doing kind of everything in the game you want it to. T3 Julra, no problem. T4 might be a little bit of a problem, but you just need to play really well in order to do it. But T3 is very, very easy. So anyway, I got really lucky with the Frozen Ire here. I got a 3 LP Frozen Ire, and I didn't make it very well. I almost guarantee that you can make something better if you get a 2 LP or a 3 LP, if you get increased damage over time, or increased cold damage, or increased elemental damage like I have here, T6 or 7 of those is a really good candidate. At the time I made this, I didn't have my rings yet, my -5 rings, so the mana regen was actually really important. And then I did get chill on hit. I was supposed to get poison on hit, but it took the chill. So it didn't come out quite perfect, but it's still really good. At the time when I equipped this thing around level 85, it doubled my frostbite damage. So this is a really, really powerful upgrade for your damage as you go into empowered. I actually was just starting empowered when I got this, and it, like I said, doubled my damage. That was pretty huge. I got a 1 LP of the Vial of Volatile Ice, so I slammed on an elemental damage. It's very easy to get a 2 or even a 3 LP, or maybe even a 4 LP of these. So I've been farming with no luck yet on getting a 2 or a 3, but I'm going to keep going. And then once you do get a 2 or 3 LP one of these, that's where you can really scale the damage by getting increased damage over time, or like elemental damage of high tiers. I've been farming Snowdrift boots. I haven't been able to find a 2 or 3 LP version of these, but did hit movement speed on this one, so I'm really, really happy with this for now. But I'm going to continue to farm Snowdrift so I can try to get like hybrid HP, or just anything else that will really help this build. And then finally, we are using Frostbite Shackles. This one is going to be a little bit harder to farm LP for, since it's a high level unique, but even just a bare bones version of this without any LP or a 1 LP is really, really great for the build. This increases frostbite duration and gives you damage, and the play on frostbite is really important too. And then for this build, I am running, really for the first time ever, I really wanted to use this new reduced bonus damage taken from critical strikes. I've always used crit avoidance just out of kind of just familiarity, but this is a really great mod to take over critical strike avoidance, because you still get the reduction of the crit damage, and then you get armor on top of that. So 205 armor on that T7 is really, really good. Like a T7 mixed with a T6 is all you need to reduce the crit damage 100%, and then you get a ton of extra armor on top of that. So it's really, really strong, really good. And then for the helmet and the chest piece, you really want to get percent health on these bad boys. Very, very important. I actually just got this chest piece last night, and basically the most important thing is you have some sort of form of mana on it, and then you have like percent or flat, and then you have percent increased health, preferably a T6 or T7 like this. And then I do seal away a +1, just a tier 1 acid flask, just to get the +1 acid flask, and I'm currently doing that because that +1 to acid flask gives me frailty on hits, so that's really strong too. And then yeah, my neck is basically you just want to get something that this Oracle Amulet is nearly perfect. If it had elemental damage over time as the second prefix, it would be perfect, but it isn't quite perfect yet. But it's very, very good. I would highly recommend an Oracle Amulet, because this is currently our only source of damage over time reduction, which is really important. And then the neck piece does get that freeze rate multiplier. And because of Snowdrift, freeze rate multiplier gives us cold penetration. So we're currently rocking, I think, like 859 freeze rate multiplier. So that's really, really strong. Gives us all the penetration we need. Plus our explosive traps are shredding cold resistance anyway. So this gear setup I have right now, the idols are basically just capping resistances and then giving me poison hit chance, because that's converted to frostbite for acid flask, and then just percent health anywhere I can get it. There's really no larger idols that are extremely good for this build, so I just recommend doing percent increased health wherever you can, and then just using it to cap off your resistances. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm gonna get there and try to have these overcapped by at least 25% to deal with mark on death debuffs in the monolith. But anyway, this full build plan will be linked down below, and I'll also have incremental gear setups that you can use and work into as you level this build from different various leveling and sort of campaign monolith standpoints. So let's jump now into the skills. So this is kind of an interesting setup because we're converting ice flask or acid flask to ice, and poison chance for it will convert to frostbite chance. So this is essential. The 4 points here. This is where I first went with my points, and then I came over here to poison pools because this cooldown doesn't apply when you're triggering them via explosive trap. So you don't have to worry about that at all. And then that's important because this global poison chance in pool is extremely important to getting an additional 100% chance to apply frostbite on hit. So that means that we have to, like for single target boss fights, it's optimal to stand next to the boss so you can be in your pool as you're attacking, and you just want to stand in the pool as much as possible that's created. This note here, amatoxic pools, just need 1 point for this, and this just basically will give you increased damage over time when you attack. And then do get 4 points into corrosive per Ziggy D in his build guide. This actually applies to the dot damage applied by acid flasks, so it's really important to have this, and it's really awesome that that does apply to the frostbite damage. At least I hope it does. I believe it does. Ziggy D said it does. Said it does. I believe him. And then moving on, like I said, we do get 1 point here for the frailty chance. That's just going to make sure that we are taking as little damage as possible, especially during boss fights. And then Falcon Tree here for throwing our flasks for us. We want to use it for, and you don't get 5 points here because we're not throwing acid flask ourselves. You want to use it for Wake of Wings, so that when we consume the mark, we get increased movement speed and attack and cast speed. I don't know. I think this is probably throwing speed too, but it doesn't specifically call it out. But hopefully, but regardless, the movement speed does increase our damage, so that's totally great. And then we want to mainly use Falcon Strikes for our coaling strike. It's going to coal bosses for us. That's really important on boss fights, that we have an immediate 16% kill threshold. So as soon as you hit 16% on a boss, use Falcon Strikes, and the boss is dead. And then I just get Sidekick just to make sure it prioritizes recent targets that we've hit, kind of like a support skill in this setup here. Now, Explosive Trap is, I transitioned to Explosive Trap, I think around level 30-ish, I want to say. And when you're first using Explosive Trap to trigger your acid throws, you want to make sure that you are not getting additional throws at all. You're not going to be able to go +2 into this until you get your -5 on your rings, your -5 mana cost on your rings. Otherwise, it's going to be 2 mana intensive. But what we do for this here is, like I said, when we first level it up, we come up here and just do this whole area and get 3 points here, 1 there, and then 2 there, and that is our core setup for this, how this will function. And then as soon as possible, you want to convert it to cold, so that way fire shred right here is being converted to cold shred. And then you actually do want to get these 2 points here for trap us, and then you want to get the lightning trap because it will throw default and converted traps, so this will give you additional throws of your trap, which will trigger an acid flask throw regardless of what type it is, and it costs no mana too, so this is really important early on as well. And then finally, when you do get your -5 to your rings, you want to come over to this area. This Dust Shroud chance per second, or rather whenever Explosive Trap hits, it has a chance to grant you Dust Shroud. This is basically one of the pillars, if not our entire defensive kind of setup, if you will. It gives us 100% glancing blow chance, and it gives us dodge cap when we're just like constantly throwing traps and they're going off. So this is an extremely important node. And then when you, like I said, when you do get your -5 rings, T7 minus reduction cost rings, you will use that. You will get 2 additional traps thrown each time. This is an extremely important node, and then you do want to get 3 into this. I was using 4 in this before my rings, but due to the 20 points, you'll have to remove 1 there, but that's no big deal. And then we use shurikens basically just for armor. This is going to juice our armor up massively, and really this is, I think, the best skill to use, because not only does it give us a bunch more armor, which is extremely important, but it also gives us mana when we are out of mana, because it's a 0 cost, and because we're already standing next to bosses and rares when we're killing them, when we're just standing next to them, we just spam shurikens, and it will just give us mana back when we're out. So that's really important too. And then just get the poison chance, because surprisingly it does do a good amount of damage because we are shredding poison res via this node right here. So it actually does do a significant amount of damage, especially to trash mobs. And then for shift, I think shift is the best one to use for this too, because it triggers our shurikens automatically, so we'll always have that up. It'll cleanse elements and heal us when we shift, so that's really important. And then we can also just create a shadow who will throw a set of traps for us. So that's also important to our damage. So just overall, just some good quality of life stuff. Momentum is extremely important because it does give you a massive speed increase. And because of the way our passives are set up, speed equals damage. So this is our passive tree. When I originally leveled this build, I didn't have 33 points into it. I just had like 25. The last points go right here, and this is a really good node for health, and then also just getting health gain on Glancing Blow, which will be Glancing Blow constantly. And then Sapping Strikes, this is what gives our shurikens mana regain when we hit at least one enemy with them. And then right here, Agility, this is what gives us increased damage per movement speed. And with this build, you're sitting at around 58% movement speed at all times, 59. When you shift, it goes up to 109, and then when you get haste on you, it goes even higher. So we have a ton of movement speed in this build, which is just incredible, and that will give us a ton more damage as well. So that is what I recommend for this tree. You need the 1 point here just to kind of get the tree progressed. It gives us throwing attack speed, which is incredible and strong. And then moving into Falconer, we want to be defensive as possible. So we're getting all 8 points here. We're getting 5 points into Raptor's wings in order to get the chance to gain haste on hit, and then more damage with haste as well. So that's really important and really strong. This is extremely important. Outlander's Tenacity gives you endurance threshold per maximum health you have. So this is very, very good. These 4 points are extremely important because we will be dodging a lot. So that means we'll be getting a lot of mana back via this stamina of the Rover. Fencing Grace, very important in order to get that +5 with one-handed weapon. And this is just going to basically just give us more damage, give us a little bit of block, and then we're going to convert that block into Glancing Blow chance. I recommend doing it like this just because you get additional health on block or Glancing Blow. So we're getting a lot of health on Glancing Blow, and it just converts all your block chance to Glancing Blow, so that way you don't have to worry about block effectiveness at all. Coordinated Fade is very important because that will give us silver shrouds quite often, which is very strong and very good. I recommend in the late game just going 6 points into Evasion Tactics because it gives you more armor. And then 3 points into Relentless Talons in order to get the health gain on Falcon Hit. It's not that significant, but it is helpful. 7 points into Sky Assassin for that damage over time. Lastly, this note here, what is that? Fallen Feathers gives you more armor, so that's also very good. So Dexterity is not so useless. Then to cap it out, final souvenir, yeah, just 1 point there. 6 points into Strike Their Flank. That's very important because our Acid Flask is slowing, and so that's going to give us more damage too. And then finally, Tailwind is very strong and very good, so I highly recommend that as well. So then in the Blade Dancer tree, 5 points into Pursuit in order to get that increased movement speed there. And then I did put 2 points here just to get a little bit of dodge rating debuff, but because I'm level 95, I only have 5 points left, and I plan on putting them into Expediency here in order to get the +1 to potion slot, and then also I want to get the increased haste effect. That's going to help increase our damage and basically just make us faster too. And ideally in the future, we'll get increased haste effect experimental on our boots, on our Snowdrift boots, but that will take a long time to farm out. So anyway, that is the passive tree, that is the skill tree. As far as blessings go, the only really important one is to get endurance from Blessing or Spirits of Fire, because we don't really have anywhere to get endurance. And so once you get 30% endurance on this one, that will give you basically as high of endurance you can have without really having to worry about getting it on your gear. I think it's going to put me at 50%, so it should put you anywhere between 40 to 50% endurance total, which is really strong and good. And then increased armor here. This is the non-empowered version. I still need to farm out the empowered one. Increased armor here is very important to make sure that we are getting as much armor as possible. And then, yeah, I don't really have anything else. This void is also non-empowered. This is non-empowered. So I'm not quite done farming these out, but getting all res in the Reign of Dragons is my plan, because all res is very good. I'm going to get a higher void roll here on the Black Sun, and then for ending the storm, I'll probably get a plus mana. But blessings, of course, are up to you and whatever your build needs in order to cap out your resistances and stuff. But we're shredding, you know, things for free, so we don't need to worry about any sort of shred blessing. You know, our our crit damage is taken care of, so we don't need crit avoidance or anything like that. Overall, I think this build is a 10 out of 10 build. I mean, it's so fun to play. I just love the fact that you can throw around traps, and you're throwing quite a few at a time. You're throwing 5 at a time, and so each 5 of those triggers this chain reaction, and I think that's really fun. It auto targets, and then also just with this gear setup, because we are using so many uniques that are so beneficial to the build, you can really stick your teeth into this build and farm out for a long time. I mean, I'm level 95, I'm still having a ton of fun, and I still have so much more room to grow this build to get like at least 2 LP here, a 3 LP there, a 4 LP there, you know, and then to further flesh out my gear, like for example this chain belt, the T7 bonus damage is very good, but the base is terrible, and I would really like to change this and get a different base with that same T7 bonus damage roll, and then have the increased elemental damage on it, have a different prefix that's more beneficial, and you know, just make sure that the base is something that's going to help me out a lot. Like, you know, there's different bases that are really good. Like there's a movement speed base that would be really strong for this build. And then for my relic slot, having increased elemental damage over time in this area is very important for the build. The cast speed is obviously a wasted stat, but because of the T6 here, it's just very strong for my build right now. And then it does give you a little bit of leech on hit, not a lot, but a little bit, so that's helpful too. And then yeah, just so like I said, I think this is a super fun build. It's super strong. Once you get your T5 rings, that's when the build really comes online. But I'll have footage for some leveling that I did with this build, some tips and tricks on that. And yeah, if you guys have any questions, please let me know. Definitely, you know, let me know what you think about the build, if you like it or not. You know, let me know if you have any questions. And then yeah, just keep on looking out for me. I'm going to keep pushing this build. I'm going to keep doing the ladder. In the short term here, I need to get more stun avoidance. I need to get more armor, more health, better damage. I want to get at least like 1,500 tick damage on my frostbite, more poison chance. So there's a ton of work for me to do on this build, and yeah, I just hope that you guys find this interesting and cool, and let me know what you think. And I just want to do a quick shout out to my beautiful, wonderful partner who supports my passion and hobby of making video game content for Last Epoch. We have a little baby on the way, so she's coming very soon, and I'm gonna still be a gamer dad, you know, a girl dad, gamer dad, but the content might be a little bit more few and far between, if you will, depending on just how much time I have to play. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to thank her for her support. I wanted to thank you guys for watching the channel, for following along here. Hopefully you guys have had just an awesome time in 1.0 release, and yeah, I hope you try this build out. Maybe it's fun for you guys, and you can push the arena along with me in hardcore solo self-found. But for now, this is Seg and Survive signing off. I hope you guys have an excellent time in Eterra, and I will catch you next time, travelers. All right, good luck. Bye-bye. All right, so this is the leveling portion of the video here, and this is just going to show you what it looked like to level this build. This is level 23, and so I've been using Vial of Volatile Ice since level 4, and focusing on the poison chance in the Acid Flask tree, and then the damage as well, at least on the initial early on points. But I will have the build planner will have point progression in the skill tree and the passive tree, so you can see just how I progressed the points over time when I was leveling this build. So we're just spamming Ice Flask, excuse me, just spamming Ice Flask, and that's doing all of our damage early on, and it's very respectable just slapping on the Vial of Volatile Ice and then getting any sort of like cold damage or elemental damage or poison chance. Will scale the damage early on, but it's really quite smooth and easy. Here I'm level 29, transitioning into my explosive trap setup. Ember. My cat is scratching her face. I don't know if you can hear that. Anyway, level 30, I spec into Explosive Trap because eventually that will be the thing that we use to proc our Acid Flask. But here I am at the Dreadnought's deck and still using Acid Flask around level 32 just because we don't really have the mana sustain to really spam Explosive Trap just yet. So it's important to keep Acid Flask on the bar so that way you can use it by itself. But as you can see, I'm using Explosive Trap here for the boss, and that is just giving us basically more mana usage, but we are proccing and getting a little bit more damage too. But as you can see, you eventually do get out of mana, so then you just go back to throwing Acid Flask, and you're actually kind of regenning mana passively to keep up with that. So Acid Flask is really just the number one way to level this build. And then once you do kind of get to a point where you have enough mana regen going on, around level 30, 35-ish, you should be able to transition into using Explosive Trap exclusively. So you'll see that in the next portion here when we start to use Explosive Trap pretty much exclusively after that Dreadnought deck zone. Now this particular fight is quite a bit further forward in time, and this is going to be an empowered Fall of the Empire boss fight. This is just an example of what it looks like at a high level, and right in this video I'm only using, I believe it was a tier 4, or excuse me, a tier 5 attack mana or throwing mana reduction. So tier 5, so that's a minus what is that, -3, I think. And then tier 6 is -4, so -4 mana. So I'm using a tier 6 version of that affix. So we don't have our T5 minus costs. And basically what that does is it makes it so that Acid Flask costs some mana. I think it's costing 2 mana in this video here. And so once you do get the additional reduction, or maybe even 3, with 2 tier 6s, it's 2 mana cost per Acid Flask. So that's why getting tier 7 is so important for the throwing mana cost reduction, because that will make Acid Flask 0, and that will just save so much mana for you, so you can spam Explosive Trap that much more. But as you can tell, even without that, just a T6 version of those rings, which is pretty easy to get, we're still doing just fine in Empowered at level 88. So just wanted to show this part of it, and yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and good luck out there, travelers.